Hi, what are your thoughts on John and Meg? Of all the Little Women couples, I see them discussed the least, and I feel like I am the only one who loves that ship at the best. Thank you. Hard eyes for this question. I do love John and Meg. I do want to make more episodes about them. Films don't really put that much focus on John and Meg. I feel like they are so focused on romanticizing Joe and Laurie and then often quite lazily handle Joe and Friedrich and Amy and Laurie, and everything else seems to be overshadowed by that. In the novel, I think the Vanity Fair chapter captures the way Meg begins to understand character. It kind of parallels to Joe in New York at the symposium. Meg likes to be pampered by these rich girls, but then she also feels that she's more of a toy for them and is there to amuse them. The Vanity Fair leaves sort of a bad taste in her mouth, but it does make her consider what kind of person she wants to be and what qualities she admires. This was one of those things that was once again completely erased from the 2019 film where Greta Gerwig, she said something in the lines of that Meg settles for the life of being a wife of a poor man. The entire point of the book of Meg realizing that the word of these rich girls is poor in its own way, that was entirely missing from the film. It's one of my favorite scenes in the 1994 film. Meg, played by Trini Alvarado, she comes to the same conclusion as Meg in the novel. Once John and Meg are married, they face the same struggles that a lot of married couples do when adjusting to a new situation. And John is the sweetest when he gives up on getting a new coat so that Meg can get a dress, and then she doesn't feel right about it. And then that's followed by the sex scene. If you don't know about the sex scene, it's on the episode Love and Sex in Little Women on this podcast. In the novel, both John and Friedrich, they felt that they were not worthy of these women because they were poor. And I think a lot of people mischaracterize Meg as somebody who just wanted to be pretty and rich. And they say the same about Amy, or that she envied her rich friends. In the first part of the novel, there's a chapter where the girls want to do this experience that they are not going to work for a while. And they tell that to their mother, who thinks it's a good exercise for the girls to see the importance of being productive. I think it actually shows that Meg has a very high work morals because quite soon she feels that she's not being productive enough and that she's lacking something. And Marches, they used to be wealthier, and Meg remembered how it was, but she never was somebody who was afraid to work. The modern narrative often wants to portray her as the least ambitious housewife. In the 19th century context, that she stayed at home taking care of the kids, that was pretty normal. And John and Friedrich, as male characters, they are very hands-on with raising their children, which was not very usual during the time. You can see John's and Meg's admiration for one another in Camp Lawrence chapter, when John goes defending Meg for being a governess. And that's perhaps my favorite John and Meg moment in the novel. It's a bit sad and weird when people say now that Meg didn't have ambition. And maybe it is a bad reading of the book, or people don't realize that not all ambition needs to be artistic, like with Amy and Joe, because Louisa May Alcott's sister, Anna Alcott, also worked as a teacher. And if I remember right, she even started school. That is very admirable. So Anna also worked as a teacher and as a governess, and so did Louisa May Alcott. Being a governess in the 19th century wasn't a very fashionable thing to do. Female education was still seen as very suspicious, and there were schools for teachers, but women were not always allowed to become teachers or professors. But John obviously admires Meg because they are in the same situation. He's teaching Laurie, who always doesn't have the greatest respect for him, and he's poor, and he sends money to his family. Meg was a governess, and sometimes the children in the family where she was tutoring gave her a hard time as well, and she also worked hard, and parts of her salary went to support her family. You can't blame Meg for wanting a new dress time to time. It is interesting that both Joe and Meg ended up marrying teachers, and Joe ran the school, but she was more of a mother than a teacher, and she was more than happy to let Friedrich do the teaching. Marge family was always very pro women's education, and even Amy teaches painting in the Bear Academy. I think one of the reasons people don't really get Meg and John that much might be because John is more an introverted character, whereas Friedrich and Laurie are more extroverted. I don't remember have I said this before here, but I think Friedrich was John's best friend in Concord. Of course, Laurie and John were friends, but Laurie would always see him as his old tutor as well. And then John was good friends with older Mr. Lawrence, but then part of him always sees him as his boss. In the March family, Joe and John were only ones who spoke German, so Fritz could speak his native language with them, and John was also a teacher. And in Little Man, there is a scene where Friedrich says that he and Laurie would go to John for marital advice since he was the one who had been married for the longest.
Hello, friends. It is Niina from the Little Woman podcast. Just to let you all know that the Little Woman podcast episode transcripts are now available as books. You can find them as paperbacks and ebooks. They are wonderful reading for all the fans of Louisa May Alcott. You can find all the links from the description.